My dear brothers and sisters, my soul-shining, storm-walking, faith-holding people, tonight we gather in the presence of something mighty. We stand not in the shadow of fear, not in the whispers of doubt, but in the glow of a promise. A promise that when your hands are callous from knocking, when your voice is hoarse from calling, when your feet are weary from wandering, God will open the right door. You may have stood before doors that would not budge. You may have rattled the locks of opportunity only to hear silence echo back. But hear me now. Do not curse the closed door. Do not weep at the threshold of rejection. For the God of endless wisdom, the author of all things seen and unseen, is not keeping you out. No, beloved, he is preparing to bring you in. So let your heart be steady, let your faith be unshaken, and let your spirit rise. Because when the time is right, when the lesson is learned, when the season has shifted, oh, my friends, God will open the right door, and when he does, you will walk through it knowing it was yours all along. There are moments in life when we stand at the edge of expectation, waiting for something to change, for something to shift, for something to finally open. We knock, we pray, we plead, and yet the door remains closed. In these moments, doubt creeps in like a slow-moving shadow, whispering questions that shake our faith. Why is it taking so long? Did I hear God wrong? Am I not worthy of this blessing? But what we often fail to recognize is that God's delays are not his denials. The waiting season is not a punishment, it is a process, a divine preparation for what is ahead. God operates on a timetable that is far beyond human comprehension. We live in a world of instant gratification, where patience is often mistaken for stagnation. But God does not rush what he is refining. He is never late, never early. He moves in perfect synchronization with his purpose. When we try to force doors open before their time, we often step into places we are not ready for. We carry old wounds into new blessings. We bring immature faith into battles that require spiritual strength. We try to claim promises without having built the character to sustain them. Waiting is uncomfortable. It stretches us, it tests us, and sometimes it even breaks us. But in that breaking, something powerful happens. Our reliance on our own strength begins to fade, and our dependence on God deepens. Waiting strips away our illusions of control. It reminds us that we are not the authors of our own destiny, but rather vessels being shaped by the hands of the divine. Consider the story of Joseph, a young man with dreams too big for his reality. God had given him visions of leadership, of authority, of greatness. But before the dream could come to pass, Joseph had to endure betrayal, slavery, false accusations, and years of imprisonment. If Joseph had been placed in the palace the moment he received the vision, he would not have had the wisdom, the humility, or the resilience to lead a nation. The waiting season was not a delay, it was a development. Every trial, every setback, every closed door was preparing him for the right moment, the right place, and the right purpose. In our own lives, we must recognize that when things do not happen according to our timeline, it does not mean they will never happen. It simply means that God sees what we cannot. He knows what lies ahead. He knows the dangers we cannot perceive. He knows the lessons we have yet to learn. And in his love, in his mercy, he holds us back, not to harm us, but to help us. Look at the nature around us. A seed does not sprout the moment it is planted. It is buried in darkness, hidden beneath the soil. It must endure time, pressure, and the right conditions before it breaks through the ground and reaches for the sun. The same is true for us. When it seems like nothing is happening, when it feels like we are buried in the soil of silence, God is working beneath the surface. He is nurturing us, strengthening our roots, ensuring that when we do rise, we will not be easily shaken. Faith in God's timing requires surrender. It demands that we release our need for control, that we lay down our timelines, our expectations, our impatience. It requires trust, a trust that says, even when I cannot see the way, I believe you are leading me. Even when I do not understand the weight, I believe you are working. Even when I feel forgotten, I believe you have not abandoned me. There are people who rush ahead of God, forcing doors open out of desperation. They settle for relationships that were never meant for them. They take jobs that drain their spirit. They enter seasons they were never called to. And though they may taste temporary success, they soon find themselves exhausted, unfulfilled, and wondering why things feel so heavy. The right door at the wrong time is still the wrong door. But when we trust the timing of God, when we allow Him to orchestrate the unfolding of our lives, we find that what He has for us is worth every second of waiting. The relationships He brings will align with our purpose. The opportunities He opens will not require us to compromise our integrity. The blessings He gives will come with peace, not with burdens. So, while you wait, do not waste the season. Seek Him. Grow in faith, strengthen your character, prepare your heart, because the delay is not a denial, it is an invitation to trust that what God has for you will come at the perfect time. There are times in life when we stand before doors that refuse to open, no matter how hard we push, knock, or plead. These moments can be frustrating, discouraging, and even painful. We often assume that a closed door is a sign of failure, rejection, or abandonment. But in reality, closed doors are often one of the greatest signs of God's protection. What we see as a loss, God sees as a rescue. What we perceive as a missed opportunity, God knows was a misaligned path. When a door remains shut despite our best efforts, it is not because God is withholding something from us, but because He is shielding us from something that was never meant for us. Imagine a child reaching for something sharp, something dangerous. The parent, in love and wisdom, pulls the child's hand away. The child may cry, not understanding why they are being denied what they so desperately want. But the parent knows what what looks appealing is not always what is best. In the same way, God in His infinite wisdom sees the dangers the pitfalls we do not recognize, and the consequences we fail to anticipate. When He closes the door, it is not to harm us, but to help us avoid what could derail us from our purpose. Many people look back on their lives and thank God for unanswered prayer. The job they wanted but didn't get turned out to be one that would have led to misery. The relationship they fought for but lost turned out to be one that would have caused deep pain. The opportunity they thought was perfect would have only been a distraction. In hindsight, they realized that what felt like rejection was actually divine protection. It is human nature to desire control. We want things to go according to our plans, to unfold in a way that makes sense to us. But faith requires trust, and trust means believing that even when things don't go the way we hoped, they are still working for our good. When God closes a door, it is not because He has forgotten us. It is because He has something better, something greater, something perfectly designed for us. Consider the story of Paul in the Bible. He had a strong desire to preach in Asia, but the Holy Spirit prevented him from going. It was a door that seemed like it should have been open, a good cause, a righteous mission, but God had a different plan. Instead, Paul was led to Macedonia, where his ministry had a far greater impact than he could have imagined. Had he forced his way through the closed door, he would have missed the assignment God had specifically chosen for him. When a door closes, it is not a time to despair. It is a time to reflect, to seek God, and to trust that He is guiding us towards something better. Closed doors redirect us, teach us patience, and refine our faith. They remind us that our plans, no matter how well intended, are not always aligned with God's perfect will. They push us to grow, to surrender, and to trust that God's vision for our lives is far greater than our own. Sometimes a closed door is not a permanent no, but a not yet. There are seasons when we are simply not ready for what we are asking for. A blessing given too soon can become a burden. A position accepted too early can lead to failure. God's timing is precise, and He knows when we are truly prepared to walk through the right door with wisdom, strength, and grace. So when you encounter a closed door, do not be discouraged. Do not waste time trying to pry it open. Instead, ask God what He is protecting you from. Ask Him to give you peace in the waiting. Ask Him to align your desires with His purpose. And most importantly, trust that when the right door opens, it will be one that no man can shut, and it will lead you exactly where you were always meant to be. Waiting is one of the hardest things for a person to do, especially when the heart longs for something deeply. Whether it's a dream, a relationship, a career breakthrough, or a life-changing opportunity, the waiting season can feel endless. It is in this space between the promise and the peace that doubt, frustration, and even fear can creep in. But waiting is not wasted time. It is not a pause in your purpose. It is a divine classroom where God shapes, refines, and prepares you for the very thing you have been praying for. Too often, people view waiting as inactivity, as if they are stuck in a holding pattern with no progress. But the waiting season is where the greatest growth happens. It is where God does His deepest work, not just around you, but within you. Waiting is a time of preparation, and preparation is necessary for the promise. If God were to open the door before you were ready, you might step through it and find yourself overwhelmed, under-equipped, or unable to handle what awaits on the other side. God is not just interested in getting you to the right place. He is interested in making sure you are the right person when you get there. Look at the life of David. He was anointed as king while still a young shepherd boy. But he did not ascend to the throne immediately. Instead, he spent years in the wilderness, facing trials, battles, and betrayals. He was being prepared, not just to sit on the throne, but to reign with wisdom, strength, and humility. Had he taken the throne too soon, he would not have been the leader God intended him to be. His time in the fields, his time on the run, his time in the shadows, all of it was necessary for his destiny. The waiting season was not a punishment. It was his preparation. In the same way, God uses the waiting season in our lives to mold us into the people we need to be. If you are waiting for a relationship, use this time to grow into the best version of yourself. If you are waiting for a career opportunity, invest in learning, developing skills, and strengthening your foundation. If you are waiting for a breakthrough, deepen your faith, expand your patience, and trust that God is working even when you cannot see it. Many people want the blessing, but not the preparation. They want the reward, but not the refinement. But a building is only as strong as its foundation, and the deeper the foundation, the higher the structure can rise. If God is making you wait, it is because He is strengthening your foundation. He is ensuring that when you step into your next season, you will not crumble under the weight of the blessing. The waiting season also tests our faith. Do we trust God only when things happen quickly? Or do we trust Him even when there is no visible progress? True faith is believing that God is working even when there is no evidence. It is holding on to His promises, even when circumstances say otherwise. It is choosing to prepare, to grow, to develop, even when it feels like nothing is happening. A farmer does not plant a seed and expect a harvest. He knows that growth takes time. He waters the soil, removes the weeds, and trusts the process. He does not doubt the seed's potential just because he cannot see what is happening beneath the surface. In the same way, your preparation season is where the unseen work happens. God is strengthening you, aligning you, shaping you, so that when the right door opens, you will be ready to walk through it with confidence, wisdom, and purpose. So while you wait, do not grow weary, do not become discouraged. Use this time wisely. Prepare your heart, strengthen your faith, Develop your gifts and trust that God's timing is perfect. The waiting season is not a delay. It is preparation for the destiny that awaits. Fear is one of the greatest obstacles to stepping into the doors God has prepared for us. It whispers doubts, plants uncertainty, and causes hesitation where there should be boldness. Fear makes us question whether we are truly ready, whether we are truly capable, and whether the door before us is really meant for us. But faith and fear cannot operate in the same space. One must always be greater than the other. Walking in faith means choosing to trust God's plan even when the path ahead is unclear, even when the door seems too big, even when our own insecurities tell us we are not enough. God never calls us to something without equipping us for it. When He opens a door, it is because He knows you are ready, even if you do not feel ready. Fear will try to convince you otherwise. It will remind you of past failures. It will magnify your weaknesses. It will show you every possible way things could go wrong. But faith reminds you of who God is. Faith declares that if God is leading you to it, He will walk with you through it. Consider the story of Peter walking on water. When Jesus called him out of the boat, Peter's initial steps were filled with faith. He did not question, he did not hesitate, he simply moved. But the moment he took his eyes off Jesus and focused on the wind and the waves, fear overtook him and he began to sink. The lesson is clear. Faith moves us forward, but fear paralyzes us. When we focus on the obstacles instead of the one who called us, we lose our ability to move confidently through the doors He opens. Faith does not mean the absence of fear. It means choosing to trust God more than the fear. It means stepping forward even when we feel uncertain. It means declaring that God's promises are greater than our doubts. Fear is a natural response to the unknown, but faith is a supernatural response to God's power. Think of all the people in the Bible who had to overcome fear to step into their calling. Moses feared speaking, yet God used him to deliver an entire nation. Esther feared approaching the king, yet she became the instrument of her people's salvation. Joshua feared leading after Moses, yet God commanded him to be strong and courageous, reminding him that He would never leave him. Every great move of God requires a step of faith, a moment where fear must be confronted and overcome. We often pray for open doors, but when they come, we hesitate. We wonder if we are good enough, if we are capable enough, if we are prepared enough. But faith does not require us to have all the answers. It simply requires us to trust the one who does. Walking by faith means moving forward even when we don't know what's on the other side of the door. It means believing that God has already gone ahead of us, preparing the way. Fear will try to keep you stuck, but faith will push you forward. It will remind you that you are not walking alone. It will remind you that God's strength is made perfect in your weakness. It will remind you that He is the one who opens doors, and when He opens them, no one can shut them. So when the right door opens, do not hesitate. Do not let fear convince you to stay where it is comfortable. Step forward in faith, knowing that the same God who brought you to this moment will carry you through it. Faith over fear, always. When God opens the right door, one of the clearest signs that it is truly from Him is the presence of peace. The world often measures success by external factors, money, status, opportunities. But God's way is different. He does not lead His people into confusion, chaos, or anxiety. Instead, He provides a peace that surpasses all understanding, a peace that reassures us even when the situation does not seem perfect on the surface. Many people struggle with making decisions, fearing that they will choose the wrong door. They analyze every option, overthink every possibility, and stress over whether they are making the right move. But the truth is, when something is truly from God, it will not come with endless confusion and doubt. That does not mean there won't be challenges along the way, but there will be an inner knowing, a divine sense of peace that reassures the soul. God's peace does not mean the absence of difficulties. Even when we walk through the right door, there may still be struggles, obstacles, and moments of uncertainty. But despite those challenges, this is the kind of peace that held Joseph steady when he was elevated to power after years of trials. It is the peace that gave Esther the courage to stand before the king. It is the peace that allowed Paul to continue preaching even when faced with persecution. One of the ways we can discern whether a door is truly from God is by paying attention to our spirit. When we force open doors that are not meant for us, we often feel unsettled. No matter how good the opportunity looks on the outside, if it disrupts your peace, it may not be from God. On the other hand, when a door is opened by God, it will align with His Word, His character, and His plan for your life. And it will come with a sense of peace that reassures your heart. Many people make the mistake of chasing after things that look good but do not feel right. They enter relationships that seem promising but are filled with constant doubt. They accept jobs that offer financial gain but rob them of their joy. They move into seasons that were never meant for them, only to find themselves exhausted and unfulfilled. The right door will not require you to sacrifice your peace. This is why seeking God's guidance is so important. The Bible tells us in Colossians 3:15 to let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts. This means that peace should be a guiding factor in our decision. If something is truly from God, His peace will confirm it. If something is not, the lack of peace will be a warning sign. It is also important to note that external circumstances do not always dictate peace. Sometimes God will open a door that seems intimidating. It may stretch us beyond our comfort zone. It may require faith, risk, or stepping into the unknown. But even in those moments, there will be a deep sense of assurance, a divine confirmation that this is the right path. Peace is not the absence of fear. It is the presence of God in the midst of uncertainty. As you wait for God to open the right door, learn to be sensitive to His peace. Do not rush into things just because they look good. Do not ignore the warning signs that come with forced opportunities. Trust that when the right door opens, it will come with the peace of God, and that peace will be your confirmation that you are exactly where you are meant to be. When God opens the right door, no one can shut it. This truth is a powerful reminder that what God has planned for you cannot be stolen, blocked, or destroyed by anyone, no person, no situation, no setback, and no force of the enemy. When He speaks a promise over your life, when He makes a way where there was no way, it is sealed by His divine authority. Too often, people worry that they will miss their opportunity, that someone else will take what was meant for them, or that circumstances will prevent them from stepping into their destiny. But God's plans are sovereign. His timing is perfect, and His ways are higher than ours. When He opens a door for you, it is not dependent on human approval, earthly systems, or the opinions of others. It is divinely orchestrated, and no one can stand in the way of what He has set in motion. Look at the life of Joseph. His brothers betrayed him, sold him into slavery, and thought they had destroyed his dream. But what they meant for harm, God turned for good. No amount of betrayal, false accusations, or years in prison could prevent Joseph from walking through the door God had prepared for him. At the appointed time, God elevated him from the prison to the palace. His destiny was never in the hands of men. It was in the hands of God. The same is true for you. No matter how many times you have been overlooked, rejected, or faced opposition, if God has opened a door for you, it is yours. People may try to shut you out, circumstances may make it look impossible, and even your own doubts may try to convince you that you are unworthy. But none of that matters when God has spoken. His word is final. Sometimes when we face obstacles after stepping through an open door, we question whether it was truly from God. We assume that if it were His will, everything would be easy and smooth. But that is not always the case. Even when God opens a door, we may face resistance. The enemy does not want to see God's plans come to fruition in our lives. And he will try to bring distractions, delays, and discouragement. But resistance does not mean the door is wrong. It means the door is worth fighting for. Remember Nehemiah, when God placed it in his heart to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem? He faced opposition from those who wanted to stop the work. They mocked him, plotted against him, and did everything they could to discourage him. But Nehemiah did not stop building. He understood that if God had opened the door, no enemy could shut it. Instead of quitting, he pressed forward, and the walls were rebuilt. The same applies to your life. If God has opened a door, walk through it with confidence. Do not allow fear, doubt, or the opinions of others to hold you back. Do not waste time worrying about who supports you and who does not. If God is for you, nothing and no one can stand against you. The key is to remain in faith. Trust that God's timing is perfect. Trust that what he has for you cannot be taken away. Trust that he is leading you, guiding you, and preparing you for every opportunity that aligns with his plan for your life. When God opens the right door, you will not have to force it. You will not have to beg for it. You will not have to manipulate circumstances to make it happen. It will open because he has ordained it, and when he does, no one can shut it. Walk boldly, trustfully, and step into everything he has prepared for you.